here's why old abandoned properties like this, even in Moldova, as I stated in Ukraine, are actually a massive moat, and why actually Moldova is more interesting in terms of its status than Ukraine. Hello and welcome back to the Traveling Reports. Today we're going to go over why, especially in central areas, abandoned buildings in Chișinău are extremely interesting, especially so since a lot of the land is digitally registered in Chișinău, and it's registered at a bureau, so you can actually find the owners. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you can contact them. However, it does mean that you are able to find them, and if you can find a contact detail, then you can buy Moldovan property at pennies on the dollar. And presently, a apartment in this sort of an area would be in the realm of probably 1,200 euro per square meter, maybe down to 800 euro per square meter, which of course is still cheap, but relative to what you can get it for if it's abandoned, it's much more expensive. Now, I like Moldova because increasingly everything is digitized, increasingly you can do everything online, and this creates a large narrowing gap in terms of how you can get information, creates a narrowing gap in terms of how you can get information, and with that narrow gap, you can create large-scale build-outs of places like this and make thousands of dollars just by the mere fact of finding the owner and contacting the owner and buying it. And of course, this creates a large gap in terms of what you can do. Now, a place like this is actually not some place I'd buy, as Moldova does have a weird Soviet split of property rights, which means that each individual unit there is bought and owned. And so you would need to essentially go unit by unit to buy all of the units, and then inevitably someone wouldn't want to sell, or someone would be like, I don't want to do the paperwork, and that creates horrible potential for investments. However, I believe that Chișinău, and to a greater extent Moldova, are positioned and primed to create massive value over the next 10 to 20 years, because they follow the Romanian model, and especially past 2018 they have already grown significantly past the model that is relevant, and it's near the Georgian embassy. I just wanted to point that out. And so it's with this model that you kind of get a moat, right? Of you have baked in appreciation of the real estate for being able to buy it, as most wouldn't go through the registries and the digital platforms to find the registries, and you gain significant real estate potential, as Moldovan zoning laws are not particularly harsh, as you can probably tell by this. You gain the ability to create value off of an asset that already is appreciating, but due to being abandoned, isn't being sold or even really thought about. And so you gain what is, in essence, one of the largest moats you can get in real estate. And for many, for example, in my home city of Columbia, Missouri, which I will be going back to, I believe, in December to early January, essentially you have a lot of abandoned buildings there too. And so it's with this that I'm actually announcing that I'm creating a playlist of the potential creation of wealth through abandoned properties, and I'm going through all of the countries that I spend time in, and I am truly dialing in on how you could use this to gain money, the zoning regulations that would potentially be harmful, and overall whether or not it would be easy to find the owner. And of course, the harder to find the owner, the deeper the discount. However, for example, in Ukraine, there's no registry. There's no property registry that is effectively functioning. So, in a place like Moldova, where there is functioning abilities to buy real estate that is abandoned due to cadastral zoning, essentially you have what is the potential to actually find the owner, rather than asking 20 people who they may have left 30 years ago and they don't know where they are. So this is what makes it easier in Moldova. Now, moving forward, I think that obviously there will be potential for growth in this regard. However, there also becomes significant risk as you are on the hook for any renovations that may be required, and you are truly dictating what is essentially a uphill battle regarding zoning. And for many of the abandoned buildings, they're not up to code, and so you actually have to destroy them. Now, that said, it's not the end of the world either, because you're buying it essentially at land value. You're buying it essentially not for the property that's on top of it, but for the land. And so, you can get a few 100 meters squared of land for what is, in essence, nothing. And so this is the true divide between what is actuality and what is theory. And so it is risky. It is something that you need to look at the liquidity events that are happening in the country. And I think that realistically, in a place like Moldova, you won't find major liquidity. Instead, you would be utilizing it for either banking relationships or to create sort of a rental or a hotel. As actually, Chișinău is not bad for rentals. It's a growing tourism scene, and many people haven't caught on to that yet. So, yeah, if you really enjoy this series, I will be doing ongoing videos. The first one will be linked down below. However, if you liked it, leave a like. If you truly enjoyed it, you can share to your friends. If you want to join me on this journey of internationalization, you can subscribe. With that said, I appreciate your view, and this has been the Traveling Report, signing off.